This podcast is brought to you by the Maryland State Library Agency. The MSLA podcast features presenters from statewide youth programs, as well as learning opportunities for library staff and resources for patrons of the Maryland State Library for the Blind and Print Disabled.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Ashley Biggs, and this is LBPD Live. And we are so excited because we have Hiking 101 with the American Hiking Society. And we have our special guest here, Maggie. Maggie joined American Hiking in 2022 and has worked in the outdoor travel and wellness lifestyle space for over a decade as a writer and a social media strategist. She has hiked and backpacked all around the world, from trails throughout the U.S. to the Inca Trail in Peru, Mount help me with this.
Rinjani
in Indonesia, and Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. Maggie is a born and raised East Coaster, but a mountain girl at heart, and she enjoys living on the East Coast and out west. She's currently based in Castle Valley, Utah, where she gets the best of both worlds. She's in a valley tucked between the LaSalle Mountains and Desert Towers. When she's not mulling over content strategies, you're going to find her hiking with her husband, her dog, paddleboarding, tending her garden. As a longtime vegan, she is especially proud of her home-grown vegetables and fruit harvests. Welcome, Maggie.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question before you get started.
Sure.
What was your passion about hiking that got you to where you are today?
So when I graduated college, my dad sent me on a trip to hike the Inca Trail in Peru, and I had never hiked before, let alone backpacked, and it was a multi-day trip. And I just really appreciated the mental and physical challenge of it, and how you kind of stop thinking about all of the other stressors that are going on in your life, and you're really focused on where you are. And the presence that it brought to me was just such a really great gift. And that's still one of the reasons why I hit the trail on such a regular basis. I love being able to be present and not have that monkey mind going on, worrying about other things. So it's one of my favorite ways to unwind and relax and de-stress.
That sounds so romanticized. I love it. Well, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. I know that you have a couple of things that you want to talk about for hiking basics, and then we'll open the floor up for questions.
Sure. So first, I'll just share a little bit about American Hiking Society. If anyone's unfamiliar with us, we're a nonprofit organization that advocates for hiking access and works to improve trails. So our mission is to empower all to enjoy, share, and preserve the hiking experience. And we achieve this through our various programs, which includes our volunteer vacations, alternative breaks, which are similar to volunteer vacations, but geared towards young professionals and college students, our annual holiday National Trails Day, which is the first Saturday in June every year, and Hike the Hill. So if you're looking for a fun way to get involved and give back to the trails, our volunteer vacations provide a really incredible opportunity to learn more about the hard work required to maintain and build trails across the country. They're week-long and weekend-long trips, and they bring groups of volunteers together in incredible landscapes across the country to participate in trail stewardship projects like trail building or trail maintenance. There's no experience required, so the point of entry is really easy, which is nice. And you'll learn everything you need to know about trail maintenance from a crew leader on your trip. And I will actually be attending one in Utah in the fall that I'm very excited about. So there's some spots open if anybody wants to join. It's open to everybody. But that's just a quick spiel, little elevator pitch of what American Hiking Society is. And I'll jump into some safety tips that are great for every hiker, whether you're a beginner or you've hiked a million trails in your lifetime. One of the most important things, and I'll start with, is to pack the 10 essentials. So these are things that are great for your safety and for your enjoyment on the trail. And we recommend that you pack these always, regardless of how close to home you're going to be, how short the trail is, how familiar you are with the trail. So the 10 essentials are appropriate footwear, a map, compass, or GPS, and some apps offer an audible version that can speak the directions to you as you go. Water. For water specifically, it's important to know that it's recommended that you take a half a liter of water for every hour that you plan to be hiking. Though in the summer, when you're sweating more and you're in that extreme heat, it's a good idea to bump those numbers up a little bit, maybe a liter of water for every hour you plan to be hiking. Of course, food. You want to fuel your body while you're on the trail. Rain gear and dry, fast layers. So you want to dress for success. In this case, comfort and safety is success. You want to wear moisture wicking layers so that you stay cool and comfortable, especially in the summer. You want to ensure that your footwear is appropriate for the terrain you're going to be hiking on, and pack layers that will protect you from the elements just on the off chance you get caught in a summer storm or some unexpected weather situation. You want to have safety items like a flashlight, a fire starter, and a whistle, a personal first aid kit. It's always helpful to go through that first aid kit as well, so you're familiar with what's in it and you know how to use it. A knife or multi-tool, sun protection in every season, not just in the summer. So sunscreen, sunglasses, and sun protective clothing, and shelter of some kind, again, just for protection from the elements. God forbid you find yourself in a situation where you're potentially stuck outdoors for an extended period of time, or you're caught in a storm that was, not forecasted that just popped up on you. So something like a space blanket is a generally lightweight and inexpensive option that you can just throw in your backpack and always have just in case. So I like to do this, and hopefully other hikers do too, to pack a garbage bag and disposable gloves. So you can pick up any trash you find on the trail or pack out what you pack in. So you always want to, if you're hiking in and you're eating a granola bar, you want to put that back in your pack or put it in a garbage bag. Don't toss it on the trail. I think that's common sense. Most people know that, but it's always worth mentioning. Trekking pole is always a good idea to have as well for increased stability and safety. And a satellite phone also is always a good idea to have if that's an option for you, to be able to keep in touch in areas that do not have cell phone service, which sometimes if you're on a trail that's in a local neighborhood, you will have service, and that's always nice to have. But just in case, if you're heading into the mountains where that's minimal, having the satellite phone is always great in case of an emergency. So those are the 10 essentials. Like I said, you always want to bring those with you, regardless of whether it's a short hike, you're familiar with it, what have you. Wilderness preparedness is always a good idea. You want to be ready for anything. And again, while it's so important to drink water while you're on a hike, it's also really important to hydrate before you hit the trail. So you want to start thinking about your hydration before you even get on the trail. So the night before, the day before, you want to be hydrating well, so you're starting off well. Another really important thing to do is to check the weather before heading out on the trail, especially important in summer where pop-up thunderstorms are very common. So you just want to kind of check that maybe on the radio or on the TV, just give it a listen, make sure you know that you're going to be safe while you're out there, and be prepared for anything that might pop up. Another thing, this is maybe a little bit more specific to the summer. You don't want to start too late in the day. You want to avoid that intense heat and sunlight. So starting early, if you're able, is always a good idea. If you want to start later, like a sunset kind of hike, that's fine too, but just be prepared that it will be dark and you want to make sure you're visible to others. So keep that in mind, grab a headlamp or something like that. Always, always, always remember to tell someone your plans, where you're headed, what trail you're going to be on, and when you plan to be back. That should be a 10 essential, but it's not something you can pack with you. So it's not quite on that list, but it is an essential item or essential thing to do before you head out on the trail. Just really important for your safety. Should you get lost, someone knows where you are, when you plan to be home. And if you don't make that time, they'll know where to look for you. God forbid you need to be searched for. You want to, of course, like I said, food is so important. Don't forget to eat throughout your hike, fuel yourself, keep your energy levels up. Because I mentioned also a GPS, you want to remember to download a trail map for offline use if you're out of service range, because obviously you want to know where you're headed, regardless of whether you have service or not. And also avoid taking shortcuts. Staying on the trail is very important for a few reasons. Getting off trail for any reason can definitely easily result in becoming directionally disoriented and getting lost. So it's best to always stick to the trail. If you're feeling too tired or realize you're not going to make it to your destination within the time frame that you prepared for, just turn back around, head back the way you came, especially if dusk is approaching and you're not prepared with the necessities to hike in the dark. Head back. That's the safest thing that you can do. And also, when you take shortcuts and you cut off of the trail, it can be harmful to the environment as well. So always want to stay on the trail for your safety and the safety of the environment around you. Always remember to leave no trace. I know I mentioned already about packing out what you pack in. So disposing of waste properly is essential. So this includes not only your food wrappers, but any biodegradable things like banana peels, oranges, pistachio shells. You tend to see those outside a lot because they are biodegradable, but it takes a long time and no other hiker really wants to see that on the trail. So just remember to either bring a garbage bag or throw it in your pack if you're comfortable doing that as well. Just always remember to pack out whatever you pack in on the trail. So those are a few essential items. I've got more if you want me to keep going.
Well, can I actually ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
With the leave no trace principle, does that mean also leave no trace by not taking things from the environment?
That is an important element of leave no trace. So picking flowers, taking stones that you find, seashells off the beach, things like that is not generally recommended. You can enjoy it while you're there, but leave it there for another hiker to enjoy and see as well.
Very cool.
Next thing I'll talk about is what to wear when you're hiking. And of course, point of entry for hiking is easy. You can wear what you have as long as you're comfortable with that. But from a safety perspective, you do want to think about important things like traction on your boots and shoes, depending on the terrain that you're going on, and the kind of clothing that you're wearing to keep you temperaturally comfortable and keep the sweat off of your body. So regardless of whether you're hiking in warm weather or cold weather, it's actually always a good idea to dress in layers. So you can remove clothing to a point where you feel comfortable. And if you're sweating, it will allow the evaporation to happen so you're not just staying wet throughout your hike. With that in mind, it's important to keep in mind what fabrics you're wearing on the trail. And while your favorite cotton t-shirt might be soft and cozy, it's not necessarily the best option to wear. Cotton absorbs and retains water. So when you start to break a sweat, that shirt is going to get wet and then stay wet, which can be a dangerous situation in both hot and cold weather for temperature regulation. And it's also best to avoid cotton socks for the same reason. They're going to retain that moisture and you're more likely to get blisters, which nobody likes. They don't feel good and they're not fun to have post-hike either. So synthetic fabrics like nylon and polyester are a good idea, as well as wool. Those are good options to help wick moisture away from your skin. And something people also tend to like about wool is that it doesn't hold on to odors quite as much as synthetic fabrics do, which could be the reason why people love wool socks so much. Your feet get sweaty. It helps keep the odor away. That's always helpful. Fleece is also a very popular option, more so in the colder weather, for nice warmth and protection from the elements. And also, if you're environmentally conscious, some hikers do enjoy that. Fleece can tend to be made by recycled old plastic bottles. So that's just a fun way to give back to the environment and wear something that's doing good for the environment as well. And when it comes to clothes and layering in particular, it's always helpful to understand what types of layers to wear, what the layers are, what purpose do they serve. So you want to start with your base layer. So this is the clothing that's going to be right against your skin. And it's also the layer that you will likely leave on for the duration of your trip. So that's your shirt that's closest to your body. So the features that you want to look for in your base layer, obviously moisture wicking, like I mentioned, a close to the body fit. So kind of tighter, but doesn't necessarily have to be snug. Soft and comfortable, so you're not chafing as you're hiking. Odor resistance, always nice to have, and fabric that will allow for a full range of motion. So like I said, not too tight that it's infringing on your ability to move. Mid layers are what's going to go on top of your base layer. I personally love wearing vests as my mid layer. I find them very comfortable and like to have a little bit more temperature regulation by not having my arms fully covered. So this just provides a little additional insulation for you and helps you retain heat as you're moving. Selecting your mid layers should reflect the temperatures you expect to encounter on the trail. So the colder the weather, the more insulation you'll want. Some things to look for when you're choosing a mid layer is, again, non-cotton fabrics, like I said, packable and lightweight, because this might be something that you'll take off as you start to heat up. So you want to make sure you can fit it in your pack. Durable fabrics that won't snag easily on branches. Again, this could be your outermost layer as well. So as you're moving around, you could catch yourself on a tree or something. Obviously, you don't want to put a hole in your clothes. Any durable water repellent finish is very helpful to have as well. Hoods always are nice too. It can keep your neck from getting a draft. You can pull it up, obviously, if you're caught in a storm. And an interior pocket is always a nice thing to have as well. Phones, tissues, snacks, what have you. It's nice to have that. Also, if you are someone who likes maybe like a yogurt or like, like one of those Go-Gurt kind of things, keeping something on an interior pocket, especially if you're hiking in the cold, can keep it from freezing because your body temperature will keep it warm. So that's always a good thing to know. I've been caught in situations where my water bladder that I wear in my backpack, the hose has frozen on me. So I've had to tuck that into my shirt in very cold weather. So just things to think about that might not be top of mind when you're going out, or you don't realize until you're in the situation. But those interior pockets definitely serve more of a purpose than just to hold your cell phone or something like that. And then, of course, your outer layer, which is your primary defense against the elements, so rain, snow, and wind. When you're selecting an outer layer, you want to, again, pick something that's packable, and waterproof is definitely helpful. Again, like I said, this is something you might take off as you start to heat up, so being able to fit it in your pack is super helpful. It doesn't necessarily have to be a heavy jacket, just like a lightweight shell, since you already have your mid layer and your base layer. So this is more of a protective layer. And you might want to consider sizing up for your outer shell, just so that it can fit over all of the other layers that you have on. And some features, again, to look for with this. Waterproof, like I said, packable, super important. Seam sealed so that you're not getting water on your person while you're hiking if you're hiking in the rain. A hood is always helpful. And a lot of these outer shells have armpit zippers, and those are really great for ventilation. So you can stay cool, but still be protected against the elements. So that's some clothing related information. If anyone has any questions on that.
Just really quickly about the shoes. I'm guessing spur of the moment hike in high heels is probably not the way to go. But how do you know which type of shoe for which kind of trail?
So it depends on what kind of trails you're going to be on. If you're on a paved trail and those are your preferences, you don't necessarily need a boot or a sneaker that has like a really strong lug sole on it. Like a flat-soled sneaker is perfectly fine. If you're going to be on even gravel is probably okay. But as you get onto dirt and steeper inclines, you're going to want a boot that has really good traction so that you're not slipping or sliding along on boulders and things like that. So when you're looking at a hiking boot or a hiking sneaker, you want to make sure that it's got really good tread on the base of it. So you can feel for big grooves and big lug soles. Like the texture of it will be bumpy so that it will grip to the ground. So that's something that's really helpful to look for when you're selecting a boot or a hiking sneaker. And again, choosing then between a hiking boot and a sneaker, the boot's really just going to provide you a little bit more ankle stability. So it is personal preference. A boot can also sometimes be a little hotter because it's going to give you more coverage. But if you want that added stability, you don't want to roll your ankle. Nobody does. Hiking boots might be a preference. And also you can hike in like a sandal if you're hiking like water crossings, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend wearing sandals on a hike, just generally speaking. But they're nice to have in your backpack should you come across water and you don't want to get your boot wet. So I wouldn't recommend crossing any water streams in your boots. You want to keep those dry and avoid blisters.
All right. Any other questions about clothing? All right. Please continue.
Sure. So I just got a little bit more, this kind of a little bit more summer specific when thinking about protecting yourself from bugs. They're out and about in the summer and they're a nuisance. So you want to wear clothes, still clothing related, but you want to wear clothes that cover your skin that will help protect you from bites and stings, like long sleeve, lightweight shirts and long pants that are snug at the wrists and ankles. So you can avoid having them crawl up your pants or your shirt sleeves like ticks, especially, which are tiny and hard to see and feel, and they just get themselves in places that you don't want them. So you can pull your socks up over your pants if you're wearing looser pants, just to keep yourself protected. And depending on where you're hiking, you might even want to wear a head net or gloves, depending on how aggressive the bugs are. If you want to try to avoid bugs as best you can, steer clear of stagnant water or fields of damp grass. They love those areas. You want to cover all of your exposed areas with an insect repellent, reapply it frequently. especially if you're working up a sweat. Obviously, it will start to kind of wash off of you. DEET is definitely the strongest option and generally the most reliable repellent, but some people don't like that, and some people don't like putting it on small children, which is understandable. So there are some natural options that you can use, like a lemon eucalyptus product, or as we all know, citronella is really great as a natural alternative. And you can also rub that on your clothing and your backpack. It doesn't just have to be on your skin, just to give you a little bit of an extra layer of protection there. And it's also best to avoid wearing perfumes and scented lotions, hairsprays, things like that that would attract bugs to you.
How should I prepare physically for my very first hike? Should I stretch? Should I run a marathon? What should I do?
Sure, stretching is always a good idea. Warm yourself up a little bit so that your muscles are ready to move. My general rule of thumb, and for myself and for anybody else starting out hiking, I would say start small and start local. Don't necessarily go for an 8-mile hike with 1,500 feet of elevation gain if you're new to hiking and your muscles are new to hiking. Start with something that's maybe a lower elevation gain. So that means how much you're hiking upwards. So that adds to the strenuousness of the hike is when you've got big elevation gain. That means you're going up a lot of hills, which also means you're coming down a lot of hills. So trying for something that's a little bit flatter and shorter is always a great way to start and kind of get a feel for what you're comfortable with, what your body's comfortable with, see how you feel the next day afterwards. I would start small.
Now I've got quite a few more questions, but I want to open the floor up for anyone who would like to unmute and ask a question.
Sure, I have a question. A low vision hiker, and I can see a little bit, but not very well. Are there particular canes that are made for hiking?
They do make a variety of canes. You can get a general walking stick, and they also do make specific sticks for people who are visually impaired that might be better suited for guiding you on the terrain specifically. I don't have any particular brand recommendations, but they do make them, and I highly recommend them. I use trekking poles often just for my own safety and stability on the trail. So definitely an option and one that I recommend too.
If you're on the phone, I think it's *6 to unmute. In the meantime, I'll ask my next question. So, how do I choose a trail that's right for me, like based on my skill level? Is there like a database where I can go and like find all the trails, or is it just like experience?
Yeah, there are so many websites, even Facebook, if you're a Facebook user, that people go and talk about trails, and you can find them in your local area, doing a quick Google search and doing some research in that way. You can find out so much about trails near you or trails that maybe you want to travel to. And they tend to also leave some really detailed and helpful reviews. So you can better understand what you're getting yourself into and what you can expect from that trail. Um, Depending on what your comfort level is, like I said, start small and see what you enjoy. Do you enjoy a gravel trail? Do you enjoy a dirt trail? What feels good under your feet? What makes you feel the most comfortable? Trying things out is the best way to find out what you like and what works for you. So I wouldn't push your comfort level too far when you're first starting out, but little by little, for sure, you can increase mileage, increase elevation gain, try out different terrains. But there are so many resources available online that offer some really helpful reviews as well. And I really think that that's a very useful tool to learn more about trails.
Okay. So, what should I do if I encounter wildlife while hiking?
Yes, that's a very important one. It depends, obviously, of course, on your geographical location. Snakes, coyotes, bears, anything's possible depending on where you are. Also, if you're hiking at dawn or at dusk, your odds of a wildlife encounter do increase. So it's always a good practice to stay aware of your surroundings to help ensure your safety. Stay off your phone, take out headphones so you can listen closely to what's happening around you. Specifically for particular animals, if you're hiking in bear country, you want to remember to make noise as you hike. So you don't want to surprise a bear. That's generally one of the worst things that you can do. You don't want to startle them and put them on the defense. Always pack bear spray if you're going to be in bear country. If you do cross paths with a bear, know how to use it. They do also sell test canisters, so there's no harmful spray in it, but you can learn what it feels like to press the little trigger on it and kind of understand what the experience is going to be like with bear spray. If you do happen to cross paths with a bear, you want to remain as calm as you can. I know it's a very scary situation, but you don't want to run. And you want to try to speak in a calm voice if you can, and try to create as much space between you and the bear as possible by backing away slowly. Although I personally recommend walking sideways. Walking backwards, you have a higher risk of tripping, and you definitely don't want to do that when a bear is approaching you. So walk sideways to avoid tripping and head back the way you came. You don't want to cross the bear. So you don't want to try and get ahead of it. Just go back where you came from. And if that's the only exit plan that you have is to go in the direction that the bear was, hang back for a little bit, try again, keep a safe distance. That's your best bet. If you do get charged by a bear, it's rare, but it happens. Do your best to cover your head and your neck and keep your backpack on. I think instinct sometimes feels like you want to throw something at the bear, but your backpack will actually provide extra protection for you. And try to stay as flat to the ground as possible as well. Spread your legs, cover your neck and your head as much as you can with your hands. And this gives the bear less opportunity to be able to flip you over. So you want to protect those vital organs. Coyotes.
Tasers?
What's that?
Do they make tasers for bears?
I don't know. And you do have to be in pretty close range for bear spray. So there's a chance that you could potentially find a taser. Again, you'd have to be in pretty close range, which is not necessarily where you want to be. But if you can find something to defend yourself with, that's always a good idea. But with coyotes and mountain lions, it's a slightly different approach. You still want to try to stay as calm as you can. But in this instance, you actually want to get loud and make a lot of noise and make yourself look as big as you can for an intimidation approach. Obviously, again, don't run. That goes for all animals. Don't run away from it. But for coyotes and for mountain lions, you do want to be loud, be intimidating, be stern in your voice versus with a bear where you want to be more like, hi there, very calm, non-threatening. A little bit of a different approach for the coyotes and the mountain lions. If you encounter a snake on the trail, best bet is to just leave it alone. They can strike pretty far. So putting as much distance between you and a snake as you possibly can is your best bet. Definitely want to listen for potential rattles, depending on your geographical location, if rattlesnakes are in the area. But just maintain your distance. For the most part, they don't really seem too impacted by people. Generally, what happens and why snake bites occur is because someone tries to touch it. So just don't do that.
All right. What should I do if I get lost or separated from my group during a hike?
That's important. And that's something that I think a lot of people initially think that they should just keep moving. But continuing to hike without a sense of direction will likely keep you lost. Or just get you more off track than you already are. So if you're on the trail and you've lost your way, best bet is to retrace your steps as best as possible or just stay put. Because being on the move, it can make it more challenging for search and rescue teams to find you. And if you do have to move for, finding water or something like that, be sure to head back to the original location. If you're fortunate enough to have cell phone service, of course, use that, call for help. But you want to do your best to make yourself visible to search and rescue teams. If you are able to call for help, try to best tell them how far you went into the trail. Maybe you're 2 miles in or something like that. If you can do your best to also describe what you look like or what your backpack looks like or something to that effect, just so people know who they're looking for and where.
Any questions from anybody else?
Hi, excuse me, Ashley. It's Robin Hughes. May I make 2 quick comments? I'm an experienced hiker with a profound visual impairment.
Go for it, Robin.
Thank you. Um, so the 2 comments that I would make. I have several O&M instructors who orientation and mobility instructors who I've spoken to about their recommendations for a good hiking cane for people with low vision blindness, and they recommend the Dakota cane. And so people, if they're interested, they might want to check online about that. And then also, in case people aren't aware, is a type of trail called a Braille trail, which are commonly found throughout the U.S. at various state, local, and national parks. And a Braille trail has a guide rope in general, and it will also, in general, have both Braille and print signage. And there's one that I frequently hike on at Patapsco Valley State Park in Catonsville. It's in the Hilton area, and it's known in general as the All Sensory Trail. But in the low vision blindness community, these types of trails are typically referred to as Braille trails. And if people are interested in locating a Braille trail, there's a website. The easiest thing to do is just Google Braille trails in the United States or Braille trails in Maryland. And there's a website, I believe it's titled Nature for the Blind. And they have it's a whole directory of local, state, and national Braille trails.
That's
Thank you so
really
much for
cool,
sharing that.
Robin.
Thanks.
I looked up the Dakota disc right away. And I've never seen that tip on a cane before, so that's pretty cool.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I appreciate everyone being here tonight. It is a little past 7 p.m. Our program started at 6:30, so we are on time to wrap up. Maggie, do you have any last minute pieces of advice for any of us who want to go hiking besides have fun?
Yeah, enjoy yourselves out there. Find your limits, test your limits if you're feeling up for it. And yeah, just enjoy yourself, be safe. Don't forget the 10 essentials. Don't forget to tell someone where you're headed and when you plan to be back. That is my most favorite tip of safety.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for being here. And there will be more LBPD lives in the future. So have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Maryland State Library Agency. For links to additional resources provided by today's presenter, please visit the show notes. For more information on MSLA or the Maryland State Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, visit marylandlibraries.org.